So greetings and good morning to our respected speakers, the Dean of Faculty of Education, and all faculty members, and also to all participants joining us today. Welcome to the Studium General by Faculty of Education, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Today's Studium General carries the theme of value-pluralism and transformative pedagogy in higher education. And this topic is highly relevant as we reflect on the role of education in promoting inclusivity, ethics, and transformative learning experiences in line with sustainable development goals for quality education. And it is my great pleasure to serve as your moderator for today's session. My name is Vana Puspitasari, and I'm truly honored to guide this meaningful academic event. So before we begin, I'd like to read your biography, Professor, so everyone will know what you're currently doing in your field.
Sure.
Professor Emiliano Bosio, PhD, is a globally recognized educator, researcher, and author whose work has made significant contributions to value-based and transformative global citizenship, ethics, intercultural education, and English language education. He has delivered keynote speeches and presentations at major international events, including the Time Higher Education Asia University Summit, the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, the International Human Rights Commissions, and the Association for Teacher Education in Europe conferences. His extensive academic publications and collaboration includes work with Carlos Alberto Torres, Henry Giroux, Hande Witt, and Yusuf Wahid. Professor Bosio serves as chief editor of several major international volumes, including Ethical Global Citizenship Education by Cambridge University Press, Conversations on Global Citizenship Education in Routledge, Global Citizenship Education in the Global South in Brill, The Emergence of the Ethical Engaged University in Springer, Value Creating Education by Rold, and New Conversations on Global Citizenship Education in Rold. As the director of the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series, a global platform engaging over 18,000 members, including educators, university leaders, and UNESCO or SDGs affiliated entities. He facilitates intercultural dialogue and global knowledge exchange across international and comparative education communities. Currently, Professor Bosio is working on the Oxford Handbook of Global Citizenship Education by Oxford University Press, forthcoming, and serves as an associate at the Jeffrey Sachs Center in Malaysia. He also brings extensive teaching experience across diverse educational contexts, having worked with school age children, university students, and corporate executives in Japan and internationally. Born in Milan, Italy, Professor Bosio pursued his academic journey across 3 countries, earning a Bachelor of Arts in Humanities in Italy, Master of Education in Teaching English as a Second Language in Japan, and a PhD in Education and Social Sciences in the United Kingdom. All right, so without any further ado, let's hear the explanation from our distinguished speaker, Professor Bosio. The screen is yours.
All right. Let's see if you can see the screen properly,
Yeah, we can see
everyone.
you, Professor.
First of all, I want to say greetings to all of you, and it is a real pleasure to discuss my work on ethical global citizenship education at this guest lecture organized by the postgraduate program Faculty of Education, State University of Jakarta, Indonesia. I love the country, by the way. on the important theme of value pluralism and transformative pedagogies in higher education. And particularly, I want to thank Dr. Vena Puspitasari for inviting me to deliver this lecture on the topic of global citizenship education, ethical pedagogy, and transformative learning. My name is Emiliano Bosio. I'm a professor of education based in Japan. I've authored and co-authored multiple scientific articles in the field of global citizenship, particularly focusing on critical, transformative, ethical, and values-based pedagogy. I have collaborated with scholars such as Carlos Alberto Torres, Henry Giraud, Youssef Wagdid, but also Peter McLaren and many others. Some of my recent books include Conversations and New Conversations on Global Citizenship Education, published by Routledge, Taylor and Francis, Global Education in the Global South, published by Broll, Value Creating Education, published by Routledge, The Emergence of the Ethical Engaged University in Springer, and then more recently in Cambridge University Press, Ethical Global Citizenship Education. And so, in terms of international journal publications, this includes, for example, Exploring Values and Knowledge in Global Citizenship Education with William Gaudelli and Carlos Alberto Torres, Global Citizenship Education at the Crossroads with Carlos Alberto Torres, Critical Pedagogy and Global Citizenship Education with Eric Giraud, and currently, I'm co-editing with Youssef Wagdid and Silke Schrenbarsch, who is based in Germany, a very interesting special issue in the international review, UNESCO International Review of Education, titled Philosophical, Ethical, and Pedagogical Perspectives on Global Citizenship Education, a critical examination with educators from South to North. And as mentioned in the introduction, I'm also the chief editor of the Oxford Handbook of Global Citizenship Education, to be published by Oxford University Press. So this Oxford Handbook will provide a thorough examination of global citizenship over recent decades, featuring diverse perspectives from both senior and emerging scholars across the Global South and the Global North. So if you're interested in submitting a potential chapter, please feel free to get in touch later. I will share in the chat my contact details and social media connection details. Let me also mention that I'm the director and editor of the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series podcast. This is a video podcast publicly available and open access, which means it's free on YouTube. And it is a series of conversations on the transformative power of education, sustainability, and the SDGs. And the podcast brings together a community of over 18,000 subscribers, including educators from schools, universities, and international institutions. This includes UNESCO chair and beyond. So I invite you, if you're interested in the topic, to subscribe for free, of course, to my podcast, or video podcast, I should say, which will help to better understand concepts of global citizenship, sustainability, and the SDGs. You can see the link for subscribing to the channel there on the PowerPoint slide. So, to give you a little bit more of details about the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series, this is a video podcast that to date has featured more than 80 scholars, educators, and leading experts worldwide. So, for instance, notable guest speakers include James Banks, University of Washington, who is widely regarded as the father of multicultural education, Carlos Alberto Torres, UCLA, who has collaborated with Paulo Freire, Karen Pashby, Manchester Metropolitan University, and Simon Marginson of Oxford University. So the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series is what I call a video roadmap to key perspectives and experiences in global citizenship education. And it is designed to be a valuable resource for three primary audiences. First, educators seeking to integrate theoretical understandings of global citizenship into their teaching practices. Second, researchers new to the field of global citizenship education looking potentially at least for dynamic entry points into global citizenship education. And then lastly, general viewers interested in learning more about the history, philosophy, and practice of global citizenship education. And so today's guest lecture or today's webinar is presented by an educator based in Japan, myself, who has collaborated with scholars worldwide, including those from both the global north and the global south. You will hear me embracing the global south quite frequently in my discussions on global citizenship education, because there cannot be global citizenship education without embracing the global south. And this is a very important point. And my experience includes indeed working internationally with academics in South Africa, Tanzania, Trinidad and Tobago, Malawi, Ghana, India, Zimbabwe, Mexico, Jordan, the United States, the United Kingdom, Israel, Canada, Brazil, Italy, South Korea, China, Japan, and many other countries, to be very honest. And so, in many ways, my teaching, research, and publications and international lectures are informed or shaped by the valuable insights of the numerous scholars who have contributed to my interview series on global citizenship. Now, an excellent outcome of my international collaborations with experts across pedagogical fields is my book, Ethical Global Citizenship Education, published by Cambridge University Press. And the book is available for purchase in the Intercultural Communication series on Cambridge University Press website, as well as on many other outlets, Amazon, Google Books, and others. And so this book I'm discussing with you today is partially informed by the rich variety of conversation I've had with international scholars in my Global Citizenship Education video interview series. So today I will discuss parts and core aspects of this book and then blend these principles into my guest lecture. Coming back to the book, I believe this will be an influential work, a core work, not only because it is published by Cambridge University Press, a highly respected publisher, because it is written in a way that is accessible to both academics and general readers. Another excellent outcome of my international collaborations with experts across pedagogical fields in the Global Citizenship Education interview series is my edited volume, already available on the Routledge, Taylor and Francis website, but to be published in full scale in on November 10th, 2025, so in a few weeks' time. The title of this book is New Conversations on Global Citizenship Education, and the book, again, is partially informed by the rich variety of conversations I've had with international scholars in my Global Citizenship Education video interview series. And I believe this will be another influential work because it is written in a dialogic style. Basically, it's a series of dialogues with scholars worldwide that is accessible to both academics and general readers. Now, before we start, let me briefly share that last year in 2024, I visited Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Sunway University, where I had the pleasure of speaking at the Times Higher Education Asia University Summit. And the panel titled Innovative Approaches to Curriculum Design and Skill Development addressed key questions relevant to global citizenship education. So, for instance, how can universities strike a balance between specialization and the holistic education approach? How can we equip students for careers that do not yet exist? Should we integrate ethical, value-centric knowledge into the curriculum? Question mark. And so, based on these questions, the summit provided an excellent platform to explore themes of ethics, but also passion about teaching and learning, sustainability, climate change, and artificial intelligence, AI, in pedagogy and curriculum design. And so these discussions are central to the evolving role of educational institutions in shaping ethical future leaders and global citizens. And I believe that topics such as global citizenship, new technologies, media platforms, AI, climate anxiety in young people, but also social justice and the common good are part of an interconnected web of challenges and opportunities. And so, if discussed critically and ethically, they hold the potential to make our planet, and I use the word planet with a capital P, more just and sustainable. Today, we will begin by exploring the UNESCO document Global Citizenship Education Topics and Learning Objectives to introduce the concepts of global citizenship and global citizenship education. So I will summarize the key points from this document and clarify core concepts. Afterwards, you will work in groups for about 15-20 minutes to discuss some guiding questions, just to give you the time to absorb and reflect on the concept I will be sharing with you today. And so in this short group discussion, it is crucial that you engage critically and actively in discussions proposed based on the questions I will share with you, just to really clarify and expand your ideas. Then we will move on the topic of global citizenship education, and I will focus on 5 key elements of ethical global citizenship education. These elements are decolonialism, caring ethics, eco-critical perspectives, global moral consciousness, and humanity empowerment. I will then discuss these elements in detail, and then we will do a final group discussion, a short one, perhaps 10-15 minutes, and then conclude with an opportunity for you to ask questions about today's guest lecture and topic. Okay, from now I would encourage you to pay attention about the concepts I'm going to explain, because these constitute the foundation of discussions about global citizenship and education. So the first point to keep in mind is that globalization has expanded the scope of citizenship education far beyond traditional national boundaries. And so this shift necessitates a renewed dedication from both educational institutions, and by educational institutions I mean schools and universities and entities involved with educating young learners, but also this renewed dedication to pedagogy involves us educators worldwide. And so educational institutions and educators play a key role in this landscape. And so their task is to cultivate critical thinkers who are capable of navigating the complexities of contemporary societies. I often use the word super complexities to really stress the complexities of our societies. And I use the word societies to embrace pluralism, because fortunately, we live in a time where there is a great diversity, and this diversity should be embraced rather than criticized. This means that developing individuals' ability to understand and engage with local and global issues critically and thoughtfully requires a new approach, possibly ethically and critically oriented, a new approach to pedagogy, to teaching and learning. And so it is within this context that over the past decade, there has been a notable rise in interest in global citizenship and global citizenship education. So this growing focus reflects a broader understanding of the interconnected world we live in. And so global citizenship education has become central to UNESCO's educational sector, underlining its importance in today's educational agenda. And so the focus of global citizenship education is to cultivate the values and knowledge necessary for students to become well-informed and responsible global citizens. This includes fostering a sense of global belonging, empathy, respect for diversity, and preparing students to contribute positively to the world around them. So here you have the definition and the focus of global citizenship education, at least as it is described by UNESCO. Now, in order to understand the concept of global citizenship, we must start from the Sustainable Development Goals. So there are 17 SDGs, as you know very well, each addressing crucial global challenges: no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth industry, and many others. And so let me briefly explain what made the United Nations, the UN, announce the SDGs. So the United Nations announced the SDGs in 2015 as a follow-up to the Millennium Development Goals known as MDGs, which were set to expire in 2015. And so the MDGs were a set of 8 international development goals established in 2000 with targets aimed at addressing poverty, hunger, disease, gender inequality, and other key global challenges. And so overall, the announcement of the SDGs was driven by a recognition of the need for a more holistic, more comprehensive, and inclusive approach to global development that addresses the complex and interconnected challenges facing our planet today. And therefore, the SDGs are highly relevant because they provide a universally agreed upon framework for addressing the most pressing global challenges. Achieving the SDGs is important, particularly for creating a more sustainable, equitable, and prosperous planet for present and future generations. And potentially, at least by focusing on these goals, we can work towards ending poverty, protecting the planet, our shared planet, and again, potentially ensuring that all people enjoy peace, prosperity, and opportunity. So, today I will briefly introduce the SDG Goal 4, quality education. So SDG Goal 4, as you might know, is core as it is aimed at ensuring access to inclusive and life learning opportunities for all. To date, this goal has not been achieved yet because, as we can see, worldwide there is a huge percentage of young learners who are not able to access to quality education. However, the goal number 4 is aimed at promoting equality, empowering individuals, fostering social cohesion, and contributing, at least potentially, to sustainable development. And so, in essence, achieving the SDG number 4 is core for building more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable education at large. So, within SDG Goal 4, I want to draw your attention to the Global Education First initiative known as GEFI. So, GEFI was led by the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, now president of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, and launched in September 2012. So, the GEFI gathered a broad spectrum of world leaders and advocates who all aspire to use the transformative power of education to build a better future for all. And so the Global Education First initiative, GEFI's 3 main priorities are to first, put every child in school, secondly, improve the quality of learning, and then thirdly, foster global citizenship. So my guest lecture today will focus on point 3, fostering global citizenship. Yeah. So here are the origins of the notion of global citizenship. Now, let's look at definitions because this will be very important for the second part of the lecture. So, what is global citizenship education? Global citizenship first, and then global citizenship education. Global citizenship is about recognizing that we belong to a broader community and share a common. So the concept emphasizes the interconnectedness and interdependencies at local, national, and global levels. So you will hear me stressing a lot this connection between local, national, and global levels. Because one of the main critiques move towards global citizenship education is that it focuses only on the global. No, at least as I write about global citizenship education in my books, peer reviewed publications, guest lectures, global citizenship education is about the local, national, and global levels. Yeah. So our actions have impacts that ripple across borders, and understanding this interconnectedness again between the local, national, and global levels is essential because it helps us to understand the real mission of global citizenship education. So, what is then global citizenship education? According to UNESCO, global citizenship education is focused on developing the knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes that learners need to contribute to a more inclusive, just, and peaceful world. Global citizenship education aims to create well-informed and responsible global citizens who can navigate and, again, I always use this word, at least potentially, positively impact our complex global societies. Now, there are certain key learning outcomes of global citizenship education, which I want to explain and share with you today. The first one is integrated learning process. So in global citizenship education, learning outcomes are not isolated. Let me repeat this again because it's very important. In global citizenship education, learning outcomes are not isolated. Instead, they are interlinked, interconnected across the cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral domains. Yeah. So, this integrated approach ensures that students develop a well rounded understanding and capability to act as responsible global citizens. Then we have the cognitive outcomes. This domain or this dimension focuses on developing students' knowledge and critical thinking skills. It's about ensuring that students are well informed about local, national, and global issues. Again, I'm stressing the connection between the local, national, and global. They learn to analyze and understand the complexity of our planet, fostering a deep awareness of how various issues at both the local and global level are indeed interconnected. The skills in critical thinking and critical analysis are crucial for learners to navigate the vast amount of information they encounter and to make informed decisions. Then we have social emotional outcomes. So, this dimension is vital for building a sense of belonging to a common humanity. It emphasizes values such as empathy, solidarity, and respect for diversity. And so, by fostering these values, we help all learners, not only those white and rich based in the global north, all learners to appreciate and understand different perspectives and cultures, which is core in our an interconnected world. Developing these social emotional skills would help students and young learners to build meaningful relationships and potentially contribute to a more inclusive and understanding society. As you can see, we are gearing toward contributing to the common good, contributing to a shared planet, social justice, sustainability. So keep in mind all these principles because will be core in in the second part of my lecture. Okay, then we have behavioral outcomes. This dimension is about translating knowledge and values into action. It focuses, so here we are talking about agency. It focuses on encouraging students to take effective and responsible actions, again, at local, national, and global levels. And so students learn the importance of acting in ways that promote peace and sustainability. Additionally, this dimension, the behavioral dimension, fosters the motivation and willingness to take necessary actions to address local and global challenges. In short, it is about empowering students to move from awareness to action. Again, let me stress this. It's about empowering students to move from awareness to action and making a tangible difference in their local communities and beyond. Now, there are three learner attributes that are crucial in the context of global citizenship education. And these attributes are developed traits and qualities align with key learning outcomes. So they draw from extensive literature reviews, global citizenship education frameworks advanced by Carlos Alberto Torres, Youssef Fatih, Hans Schattel, myself, and many other scholars, but also the UNESCO's work on global citizenship education. So what you see here is informed by a vast literature review and the work that myself and other global experts on global citizenship advanced in the last, I would say, 10 years. So let's begin with informed and critically literate. The first attribute is related to knowledge of global governance, interdependence, but also civic literacy. Herewith, students develop skills in critical inquiry, media literacy, and understanding of local and global themes. Particularly, there is a strong emphasis on active engagement and lifelong learning for civic education. Yeah. So this attribute within the discussion we are having today on global citizenship education, this attribute potentially empowers learners to navigate the super complexities of a globalized world with discernment and understanding, enabling them to contribute meaningfully to our societies. Then we have socially connected and respectful of diversity. So this second attribute focuses on understanding identities and relationships towards developing a sense of belonging. Belonging to what? Belonging to our shared planet. Yeah. So as you can see here, I'm indirectly introducing an important concept on this discussion on global citizenship, which is a sense of shared humanity, a sense of belonging to our shared planet. Because one of the main critiques of global citizenship education would put forward is that global citizenship education just works as a marketing tool or as a nice word for attracting international students. Yes, might be, but this could be a neoliberal approach to global citizenship. The ethical and critical approach I'm discussing with you today is focused on really helping all individuals to understand that we are all interconnected. Yeah, this sense of shared humanity. Yeah, This is very important for your group discussions coming up next. So, coming back to the socially connected and respectful of diversity attribute, it is important to stress that this attribute fosters a sense of empathy and inclusivity, preparing learners to engage constructively and respectfully with diverse communities and cultures. Yeah, you can see that there are some keywords that will come back again and again in my speech today: respect for diversity, embracing diversity, contributing to the common good, social justice, sustainability. These are all keywords that you will hear a lot today from me. Then we have the ethically responsible and engaged. This third attribute is core because it is grounded in human rights, caring for others, but also environmental understanding and environmental stewardship, which means helping all learners understand, on the one hand, the importance of personal and social responsibility, and on the other, the complexity of social justice issues. Within this attribute, the aim is really to develop skills for civic participation and contributing to a better planet through ethical action. Yeah, ethical agency, another keyword. So this attribute potentially at least instills a sense of agency and commitment to making positive change, empowering, at least potentially, students to advocate for justice and sustainability in their communities and beyond. So, to conclude, these three learner attributes: informed and critically literate, socially connected and respectful of diversity, ethically responsible and engaged, are core in shaping students into active and responsible global citizens. Yeah. So, by nurturing carefully these attributes, educators can keep students with the knowledge, skills, and values they need to navigate our interconnected planet with integrity and compassion, but also fostering a more just, inclusive, and sustainable future for all. Now, I want to thank you for pay attention to this first part of my guest lecture. And now I want to elicit reaction and thoughts about what I said in this first part of the lecture by giving you about 10-15 minutes to discuss these three core questions. So, in the second part of this guest lecture, I will focus specifically on ethical global citizenship education as a model grounded in value pluralism. And in the first part of my lecture, I noted that globalization has intensified interdependence among nations, local and global communities, and specifically in relation to our discussion today, globalization has expanded the notion of citizenship education. In some countries, people would use civic education well beyond national borders. And so today, educators are challenged, as some of you commented on, are challenged to cultivate critical, reflective, and ethically conscious learners who can navigate the complexities of an interconnected world. And so, according to UNESCO, global citizenship education develops the knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes needed to build inclusive and peaceful societies. And so over the past 25, 20 years, several orientations has shaped the notion of global citizenship education, which, by the way, by definition, is a very dynamic and controversial notion Why? Because it can be interpreted, I mentioned this briefly in the first part of my lecture, it can be interpreted from a diverse set of orientations. So, for example, we have a neoliberal orientation towards global citizenship education, which treats global citizenship as an engine of economic competitiveness, with an extreme focus on skills, and preparing students for the international job market. Now, important as it is, preparing students for the international job market cannot, and in my opinion, should not be the only focus of a global citizenship education. And therefore, then you can see that we have a variety of other orientations of global citizenship education. We have the humanistic orientation, which promotes moral and personal growth. We have the transformative approach to global citizenship education, encouraging learners to reassess their assumptions, reframe their assumptions. We have a critical approach to global citizenship education, confronting colonial legacies and structural inequalities. Then we also have the cosmopolitan orientation of global citizenship education, highlighting openness to diversity, interdependence, and shared humanity. We have the value creating approach of global citizenship education, which emphasizes, for example, inner transformation, happiness, and the creative contribution of individuals to the common good. Among these multiple perspectives on global citizenship education, I propose an ethical global citizenship education grounded in value pluralism. Let me explain this because it's quite core in today's discussion. An ethical global citizenship education grounded in value pluralism recognizes, again, this is very important, recognizes that multiple, sometimes divergent moral and cultural values can coexist and must be engaged with, yeah, coexist and must be engaged with through dialogue, indeed, and mutual respect. So rather than striving for uniformity, yeah, ethical global citizenship education, as I conceptualize it in my books and peer-reviewed scientific articles, ethical global citizenship education encourages educators and learners to move across the precious differences through dialogue, empathy, and critical respect. This process, at least potentially, would help educators to co create another core notion to co create spaces of understanding that uphold justice, sustainability, and human flourishing. Yeah. In other words, value pluralism, as I conceptualize it in this discussion on ethical global citizenship education, is not about relativism. It is about ethical engagement with diversity as the foundation of transformative learning. Let me repeat this again because it is core. Ethical global citizenship education is, as I conceptualize it, is about ethical engagement with diversity as the foundation of transformative learning. Specifically, the term ethical within ethical global citizenship education directs attention to all facets, all aspects of the teaching and learning environment and the student experience, encompassing 5 value dimensions, which I also discuss in my book, Ethical Global Citizenship Education. These dimensions are the critical, cosmopolitan, humanistic, value creating, and transformative. And so, as illustrated in this figure that you can see on screen, each dimension presents a series of principles, or I prefer use the term pathways, pedagogical pathways for teaching and learning within this notion of ethical global citizenship education. Although what I heard from my colleagues is that these principles can be applicable, pedagogically speaking, to education at large. So here I start introducing a framework which is potentially applicable to pedagogical approaches for and within education at large. But today we want to focus on ethical global citizenship education. So in this webinar today, given time constraints, I will focus on 5 key principles of ethical global citizenship education. These principles are decolonialism, caring ethics, eco-critical views, global moral consciousness, and humanity empowerment. Let me now discuss these 5 key elements. So, given that ethical global citizenship education focuses on fostering ethical principles such as fairness, equality, compassion, integrity, alongside the development of critical and reflective knowledge, given that it seeks to nurture students' global understanding, self awareness, cross cultural compassion, and a sense of accountability for achieving the common good, both locally and globally, and given that at least potentially seeks to promote readiness to speak out, active engagement in addressing shared global concerns, but also the cultivation of human values such as empathy and respect. Linking ethical global citizenship education to pedagogical practice means, in my opinion, envisioning an ethical platform through which educators commit to the liberation of the human spirit towards critical and global justice. Ethical global citizenship education, as I will discuss it today with you, represents, at least potentially, a pedagogical commitment to learners' moral awakening and transformative engagement with our shared planet. Yeah. So now I will start examining and sharing with you the 5 principles of decolonialism and the caring ethics, eco-critical perspective, humanity empowerment. Yeah. So let's begin with the first dimension, decolonialism. This is core. And perhaps a question that comes up very often when I speak word one is why decolonialism as the first element of ethical global citizenship education. So this is a core element because ethical global citizenship education promotes decoloniality and diversity rather than neutral universal subjectivities. And why this is important? It is important because the first step for an ethical global citizenship education is for educators to develop in all learners, let me emphasize this, all learners, what I call hyper self reflexivity with a pedagogical focus on dissensus that would assist all learners in dealing with complexity and paradox. Yeah. So assisting through the development of what I call hyper self reflexivity, assisting all learners in dealing with complexity and paradox. Yeah. So this is the core definition when it comes to the colonial element of ethical global citizenship education. Now we have a second core element of ethical global citizenship education, which is based on caring ethics. Ethical global citizenship education promotes the concept of caring ethics while encouraging learners to care for individuals and human rights as a foundational pillar. Let me repeat this again because it is very important. Ethical global citizenship education promotes the concept of caring ethics while encouraging learners to care for individuals and human rights as a foundational pillar. From this angle, ethical global citizenship education represents a pursuit of holistic education encompassing outcomes that include spirituality, art, aesthetics, ethics, as well as ambitions towards the creation of peace in line, for instance, with the UNESCO Commission report of Jacques Delors titled Learning the Treasure Within. Learning the Treasure Within is a great document which I believe is still publicly available for free from one of the UNESCO's website. So I truly encourage you to download this document, look into this document, Learning the Treasure Within, because the title speaks volume. And I can tell you that many of the principles I discuss in my publications are inspired by the Jacques Delors report, UNESCO Jacques Delors report, Learning the Treasure Within. So I would encourage you to read it. And then perhaps in the future, you can share with me your reaction. So the document, the UNESCO document by Jacques Delors titled Learning the Treasure Within emphasizes the importance of living in harmony with one another and with the rest of the planet, which is a core characteristic of ethical global citizenship education. Living in harmony with one another and with the rest of the planet. Let me address the third element, eco-critical perspective. Yeah. So there cannot be discussion about an ethically and critically oriented global citizenship education if we do not bring in discussions about environment and ecology. We do not live in isolation. Therefore, just focusing on humans is not providing a complete picture of what we really need to live in a peaceful society. Yeah, let me repeat again, only focus on humans, pedagogically speaking, in the classroom setting is not enough for constructing and encouraging young individuals to contribute to the common good effectively. We need to focus on both humans and non-humans, which means we need to focus on embracing our environment. And therefore, ethical global citizenship education encourages all learners to develop what I defined and other colleagues define eco-ethical consciousness or ecological consciousness, which means supporting learners to examine the injustice created by humanity's perception that it is the supreme being on earth, and therefore, by swapping out ego for eco, let me repeat this again, is essential. By swapping out ego for eco, we can move the focus away from our human-centric attitude, which is resulting in destruction and ecological disasters. Yeah. So this shift from ego for eco is another essential element of this discussion on ethical global citizenship education. And therefore, one of the objectives of the ethical global citizenship education is to foster in all our young learners eco-ethical consciousness that considers the environmental and social impacts caused by us, so caused by human decisions, effectively indivisible. Let me stress this again. One of the core objectives of the ethical global citizenship education is to foster in all learners what myself and many other colleagues define eco-ethical consciousness that considers the environmental and social impacts caused by human decisions effectively indivisible. Now, let me address the fourth element, global moral consciousness. Yeah. So, the global moral consciousness element of ethical global citizenship education I discuss with you today in this webinar encompasses, embraces the cultivation of a type of humanistic consciousness that transcends national, ethnic, geographic, and even religious boundaries. Some of you in the first part of our discussion mentioned the complexity of engaging in dialogue with the wonderful diversity existing in your country. And then this principle really speaks to that challenge. Yeah. So the cultivation of a type of humanistic consciousness that transcends national, ethnic, geographic, and even religious boundaries. And so this approach consists of an awareness of other perspectives, a profound respect for other perspectives, a single humanity as the primary level of community. This is really challenging. A single humanity as the primary level of community and a moral consciousness to act for the good of the world. It also encompasses elements of autonomy and carefulness. From this perspective, I propose a vision of ethical global citizenship education as being modes of thought and action with the basis in the connection of humanity with autonomy and carefulness. Autonomy herewith does not mean that the student is separate from society. Rather, the opposite. It involves educators cultivating the student relationships with others. Here, others as a capital O to stress the importance of engaging with diversity. And so, educator support to all students must develop the students' appreciation for the notion of carefulness towards the other. Carefulness towards the other, another challenge here, yeah? This refers to the influence of the individual situation, and it proposes that it is possible, yeah, challenging, but it is possible to be responsible for one's personal life and philosophy while caring for others. And so, herewith, humanity is a foundation that helps learners hypothetically, potentially, to improve their human potential by reflection and dialogue, acquiring the resources for living a worthwhile life based on the notion of carefulness, living in harmony with others on the basis of a moral code, assisting others in living valuable lives. Yeah. So as you can see here, the notion of moral consciousness becomes central to ethical global citizenship education, although challenging. Okay, now let me address the fifth element, empowering humanity. I could discuss this element for hours and hours, but our time today is limited. But what I want to say is that I do believe that empowering humanity requires an ethical global citizenship education to open a path for the personal improvement of every student. Again, not only those white, rich, and located in the global north, every student. From this angle, empowering through ethical global citizenship education embraces all aspects of human behavior. It emphasizes an interpersonal dimension, which we discussed in the first part of my lecture, an interpersonal dimension which recognizes the human drive to live harmoniously and responsibly with others. Yeah. a human drive to live harmoniously and responsibly with others. Yeah. This is another key element in this discussion on global citizenship education. I therefore believe that the type of global citizenship education we need today and moving forward in the future is critically and ethically oriented. It fosters in our learners ethical and critical knowledge and value based knowledge based on five key elements or five key value orientations, as I call them in some of my peer-reviewed article and scientific articles. Yeah, value orientations. I like this term. These five key elements are decolonialism, caring ethics, eco-critical views, global moral consciousness, and empowerment. And so, in this guest lecture today, I suggest that ethical global citizenship education, indeed in its ethical essence, raises questions not only about the meaning of global citizenship education and global citizenship themselves, it also brings into view matters of the purposes of education because today we are having this discussion in a very prestigious university in your country, and it brings into view purposes of the kind of beings that higher education seeks to develop in 21st century, the era of globalization, particularly in relation to the higher education and education at large, neoliberal globalization, what we mean by ethical values and knowledge in higher education.